Okay, so let's talk a little bit about probability and understanding our words. So probability experiment, I'll probably just say the word experiment mostly. Okay, but probability of experiment is just an operation, okay, something that yields a set of results, and the results from that are called outcomes. And we're going to talk about outcomes here in just a little bit. Sample space. You're going to see this a lot. Sample space. It's the set of all possible outcomes from an experiment. Okay? All possible outcomes. Now, how is that different from an event? Event is the subset of the sample space of a probability experiment. So it is, an event comes from your sample space. Okay? It's a subset of the sample space. So it comes from the sample space. And the sample space is the possible outcomes. Okay? And then the definition for outcome. What is an outcome? It is the result of a single trial of the experiment. A single trial. Okay, so all those words probably don't mean much. So what we need to do is, talk about it in terms of breaking them down. So if I say that I'm going to have you guys do an experiment, okay, and your experiment is going to be to flip a coin, then your sample space is going to be either a head or a tail, right? So we would write it as a set head, tail, because those are the possible outcomes from this experiment. So my experiment is flip a coin. My sample space is I either get a head or a tail. That's the possible outcomes. Okay? Event. So what is an event? Well, an event would be, go back and read the definition, a subset of the sample space of a probability experiment. So it would be either I get a head or I get a tail. So I'm going to say I get a tail. So my experiment is flip a coin. My sample space is I either get a head or a tail when I flip the coin. And what I'm looking for, my event, is what are the chances that I get a tail. Okay? So that's the difference between those words. Now, your outcome is what actually happens. So it says the result of a single trial. So we don't know the outcome from our probability experiment until we actually flip the coin. So we would have to flip the coin. And so if I take my coin and I flip my coin, okay, I got a tail on this penny. And so my outcome would be a tail. Okay, so again, I have to do the experiment to get that outcome. Let's do another one. Suppose that my experiment was roll a die. Roll a die. Then when I roll a die, my sample space, what are the possible outcomes when I roll a die? Okay, so my sample space, look at the die, okay? So my sample space would be the possible outcomes when I roll the die. So on a dice, there are sides, and there are 6 sides. So my sample space would be, I could get a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6. So my event, let's say that, remember my event is a subset of the sample space. So it's got to be a subset of the sample space. So it has to be something from here that's going to happen. It could be one thing or it could be 2 things, but it's got to be something from this subset right here. Make a subset. So let's say I want my event to be get or roll, let's say roll a 3. Okay? So then my outcome would be actually taking that die, rolling it. Oh, see, I rolled a 2. That would be my outcome. I didn't get what I thought I was going to get. Okay, so we'll talk about outcomes later, but you just need to understand the definitions and what those words mean.